Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Roundup on NBC. Venezuela is facing a crisis that could reshape its future and test international law. With the United States claiming it will oversee a transitional administration, and President Nicolás Maduro reportedly captured and facing charges, questions of sovereignty, governance and regional stability are at front and, of course, center. Now, to help us make sense of these developments, we are joined by Professor Richard Iroanya, a lecturer at the School of Military Sciences at the University of Namibia and an expert in international relations. Good evening, Prof. Welcome back, and thank you so much for being here, for being with us.
Pleasure.
Prof, quite interesting developments we're seeing there in the United States. Quite shocking to, of course, many. But from an international law perspective, how significant is the United States claim that it actually will administer Venezuela during a transitional period?
Okay. Oh, thank you for the question. I think first and foremost, you have to establish one thing, that under international law, the United States has no basis to administer another country. That would be a flagrant violation of the United Nations, UN Charter, especially Article 1, Article 2.1, and Article 2.4. And it has no basis to do that. And but if it does, then it will set a very dangerous precedent. Although within international law, we must also understand that the core principles that guide international relations to politics is the principle of sovereign equality. Now, if you look at the principle of sovereign equality, it means that all states are equal, and that no state can be detected by others. And and the states, the people within the states are the ones who have the right to run their country, and not external forces or any external state actor like the United States. So that is a flagrant violation of the UN Charter. They might have their reasons for doing so, but now equating narco-terrorism as armed conflict against the United States, to me, is very logical. And if the U.S. was condemning Russia for invading Ukraine, then what moral basis now does it have to argue against Russia? Because it has also committed the same error. And the United States, by doing that, is also contributing to dismantling of the international rule-based system that it created after the Second World War. And it has been a pattern. We have seen withdrawal from the intermediate range in the nuclear forces treaty with Russia. We have seen withdrawal from a Paris Climate Agreement. We have seen withdrawal from WHO. And we have seen a lot of other issues. Trump has also made it very clear that it wants to protect the United States' interests first. So we are now seeing a kind of isolationism on the part of the United States government, and also a little bit of expansionism now. We were listening to the news, and he said that he's also making claims to Greenland. And so we are seeing new development in international relations that is going to reshape, and possibly also cause kind of political force and realignment in the world.
Very well. And speaking of political realignment, if you just look at the history of this in its sense, this indictment, of course, against Maduro comes years. And, of course, we have also seen in recent months the attacks on the suspected boats, drug trafficking boats as well, from Venezuela. But if you look at the capture of President Nicolás Maduro in itself, what does it mean to Venezuela's sovereignty?
Of course, it weakens Venezuela's sovereignty. It weakens it in the sense that now there's a lot of political instability within the country, and it has also created a kind of power vacuum, because there are so many armed drug cartels within Venezuela who might also now be curtains for power to fill the vacuum that has been created with the removal of Maduro. Although a vice president has been a president has been inaugurated on acting capacity and so on, I do not see the U.S. administering directly. It is likely to administer through a puppet government that's in power, and that will not be a legitimate government on the part, from the perspective of Venezuelans. It will be seen as an American-run government, and getting involved in the resource control and will also justify the argument that many have made that the U.S. is just all about its interests, and that will set a very dangerous precedent. And the current situation has created a kind of migration crisis now. Colombia is complaining, and other countries also, which, although what is that being caused by first the naval blockade, and then which has also the destruction of the infrastructure, power infrastructure, communication infrastructure, which has further weakened the economy. So it is not affecting the allies of the country, but the poor masses that the U.S. tries to protect. And so it has created a serious problem for the sovereignty of the country, meaning that even the countries within the Southern American regions are sort of afraid now, because this is also what was happening during the Cold War, when the United States were destabilizing, many of the countries in South America. So it seems that we are returning back to the Cold War era, and this is a very dangerous point.
Absolutely. And you're speaking of countries that, of course, are then sort of in fear. We've seen Colombia was, of course, the immediate neighbor to Venezuela, also boost its military presence along its borders. But all in all, how unusual really is it for a country to actually announce control over another country's administration? Quite a very interesting thing that we're seeing, but it's of course not the first time in history.
Yeah, of course, not the first time in history. So, like the Venezuelans we're listening to say, this colonialism, you're trying to colonize the country and to determine what happens in the country. It's a revival of the Monroe Doctrine also, which governed the Cold War era in the 19th century, 20th centuries also. We find that America has claimed a space of influence and said that we will not tolerate a partnership with any enemy country, within our spheres of influence. And when you have done that, you are also encouraging other countries like Russia, like China, who are also claiming spheres of influence for themselves. They say that we do not want any other country to intervene in our spheres of influence. Yeah. And so what the United States have done actually in Cuba, in Venezuela, for a very long time, will be debated, and will also be seen as a kind of overstretching of superpower influence.
And what's popular now, what we do understand is that the United States has broken international law. But what are the legal or diplomatic consequences that the United States actually can face over this action?
Well, whatever consequences they will face will be secondary. International politics is all about what the great powers do, what the superpowers like the United States do. It's not the first time. In 1989, it kidnapped General Manuel Noriega from Panama, tried him in the United States, imprisoned him for 40 years. Nothing happened. We had the excuse of invasion of Iraq. Nothing happened. Afghanistan, nothing happened. So there might be condemnation. There might be maybe diplomatic escalation. But don't forget that we are talking about a superpower that plays a great role to the establishment of the United Nations, a member of the Nations Security Council. So it will likely veto whatever diplomatic interactions taken against it within the UN Security Council. However, countries will also condemn them. But if the United States is trying to bring about peace in countries like Venezuela, then what it has done in countries like Ukraine, what it has done in Venezuela will complicate that process. And that might also be a kind of a consequence for the United States. Again, we've seen that there will be more division now in South America. And you can see that Mexico has condemned the action, Colombia has condemned the action, Brazil has condemned the actions, and there has been a kind of division now within South America, and that will not be well for geopolitical, politics of the country, of the region.
And speaking of the countries that actually also have condemned, we've also heard, or rather seen statements from China as well as Russia as well. Why are, the countries such as China and Russia strongly, condemning the move that was made by the United States? And of course, everybody's looking at them as the superpowers of the world, as in what are they then able to do about such a situation?
Well, they have done what they're supposed to do, condemn their action, and I think the United States has specifically targeted Russian allies. First was Iran, and now it is Venezuela. And these are strong allies of China, and these are strong. This is a strong ally of China and a strong ally of Russia.
That's right.
So now, in terms of trade relations, also this is a big blow to China and to Russia as well, because in terms of military armament, Venezuela depends on Russia. to buy its armament. And in terms of trade, they sell their oil, mainly to China.
Yeah.
And this is where the issue also gets more complicated. And people are saying, is it really about oil control or something like that? But I think it is also the problem of selling the oil not in the US dollars, but in, I think, Chinese renminbi or what, the currency, you see. And whenever any countries try to sell its oil not in the US dollars, it attracts the wrath of the United States. We've seen Gaddafi talking about gold-backed, currency to sell African resources, and what happened to him. And we have also seen about Iran also, trying to take about that approach, and what happened to Iraq. So I think these are some of the dynamics that we are seeing. And there are more to it than what we're just saying now. And the direct control of the resources, as Trump has said, is to give direct access now to the United States to control the economy of Venezuela. And this is a very dangerous precedent that will be set. And well, it is still too early, to speculate of what will, how this is going to unfold. But one thing is that America never supports any country for too long. I mean, Afghanistan is a good example. 20 years is good, and Taliban are back in power. And in Syria also, they have also drawn back. In Libya, they have they succeeded in destroying the country, and now Africans are being sold in slavery there. Now Libya is divided, more divided than it was under Muammar Gaddafi. So these are very dangerous times.
Yeah, and speaking of dangerous times, I think the understanding really we want to see is if this could actually escalate to broader international tension or conflict. I think I think you've also let us in a bit on that, but just expand a bit on that. And even more, a two-part question that I want to ask you as well is what the U.S. President of Donald Trump has also said, that he will then sell the oil for Venezuela. Could this be a benefit or could this be a downturn? Of course, already are seeing that the oil prices are likely to drop. What is your analysis on that?
I think, let me first of all, go back and talk about, the oil a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, there will be a question of, legitimacy and so on the part of the United States. So, are they going to say the the Venezuelan oil who is going to buy and so on, and how would that be used? Because definitely Donald Trump wants to use that to cover the expenses that he has incurred, or the United States has incurred, in removing Maduro, and it's not going to be in the interest of the Venezuelan people, And the second part of the question that you ask relates to
rather the tensions that could
the tensions, international tensions. I think what we're going to have is kind of accelerated or realignment of political forces. It's going to strengthen, the action is going to strengthen the reserve and, of course, partnership between China, Russia, and North Korea. And that will create tensions. It will create tensions in the Asian region. And also we are going to find countries now allying to themselves. Yeah. And within the NATO itself, there's a division, because a lot of the countries might not have voiced out their criticisms, but they are not in support of what the NATO has done, because it's exactly what they are battling against Russia, in Europe. So supporting Donald Trump means that they're also endorsing the actions of Russia.
Yeah. In this situation, I think all eyes rather are on international bodies such as the UN. Could they play a role in such a situation, and perhaps just let us in on what is likely then the next steps of all of this to happen, now that we're of course we're already expecting Nicolás Maduro to of course appear in court this evening. What could international bodies such as the United Nations actually do?
They have done what they're supposed to do, and they're within the United Nations General Assembly, there might be a condemnation of the U.S. action, which will be more symbolic. Yeah. People have always asked if international law is actually law, the science jurisprudence. Also, at this particular time, nobody enforces international law. Yeah. So it will have no effect on the United States because countries, decide to withdraw if they have the capacity to do so from international agreements, international laws, if it did not work in their favor. And that's what the United States have actually done. Yep. Yeah, the international organizations can condemn, but it should be more symbolic to have very little effect on the United States, because we are talking about the largest economy and the so-called most powerful country in the world.
Absolutely. Lastly, in brief, Prof, in your view, what possible scenarios could unfold in the coming weeks or months, if you like, for Venezuela?
Oh, the first one is, I think we're already seeing a vice president sworn in. Whether she had a part, in the plot against Maduro or not, we don't know at this stage. Yeah. But we might know in future, because there might be some declassifications, of document, there might be declassification of information. And we can, some of those who participated in the raid might in future write books, so we see actually what happened there. And so we have seen the installation of a president who is likely to be a U.S. puppet, and we're also likely to see in future that Maduro supporters are likely to go into the bush, also pick up arms against the state. So we are likely to see, more destabilization of the region, of the country, and also the region. Maybe in the coming, not foreseeable future.
Absolutely. Well, Prof, thank you so much. Of course, very interesting developments that are happening in that part of the country. But of course, thank you so much for being here. Of course, we will expand this conversation more.
Thank you.